Hi. I apologize. I know. Thank you, Lori. She was awesome. Um, anyways, tonight I'm going to be doing, since I have so many Christmas horses to do, I'm going to do a garland, a pine garland Christmas horse for everybody. Hi, Shirley. Um, so I am, of course, using my favorite Unique in the Creek board, which is the horse board. Um, if you use my affiliate link and you need boards, you can get 5% off your boards purchase by using 5 off boards code at checkout. So tonight I'm going to use the horse board. I am going to use probably a pine garland from Walmart and then another half of a garland from Walmart. So I use usually about 1.5 garlands. These are 9 foot long, and they are the non-lit branch garlands from Walmart. This particular Christmas horse for the mane and the forelock, I use red 60919, and I use 2 stems for them. I make the halter or bridle out of this red 5/8 ribbon, which is item, it's RC 127899. And then the bow and the ribbon tails, which I do on this horse too. I use this scarlet Reliant ribbon. And it is, if I can read it, it is 92975W 908 09H. It's a Dupiani Supreme Wired Edge 1.5 inch, and it's in scarlet. The only place I've been able to find this is on Amazon. So, anyways, to get started. So, my advice, which I learned from my live, if you want to do one of the horses, my best suggestion is to get a couple pine garlands and unroll them. So, and then if you, because a lot of people have asked me, I personally do not have, I sort of have a pattern, but there is no particular, like, you have to do it this way, or the zip ties go in this hole. It is kind of where the garland takes me and how it's moving. And I zip tie. The one thing I do make sure to do is I do quite a few zip ties along the mane, because I want that shape of the mane, and I really make sure it's secure on the edges because it helps me keep, when I start moving the garland, it helps me keep the shape and form the shape of the horse that I want. So one of the things that I would tell you is that if you haven't done a horse yet, take your garland and just lay it on your board and kind of form your horse. And it doesn't have to stay like this, but it will give you an idea of what holes you're going to end up using. So I just kind of keep laying it out, so that, and I know it doesn't stay very well, but it will definitely give you an idea of how you want it. So it's basically an up and down attachment of the garland to the horse frame, the horse board. So anyways, let's get started. My other tip is that I always, with the pine garlands on these horses, I always start at the ear, because I want the end of the garland. I take the end, pine tines, whatever they are, and I kind of Oh, and usually one comes off. Make sure that you bend the end. That's why that one came off. So I'll just add a couple more of these pine garlands here. And so I stand them up, if you can see, and then there's the garland, the wire that's holding the garland together. And now for the ear, I always put it on the board. If you can see, I'm going to show you the very top ear hole, right here, the very top to the outside of the board. And I put it right, that opening right where the wire is for the pine garland. So once I get that done, I just kind of keep taking my garland and I almost put it, make it form straight up so that the wire of this garland is touching the board as I put it in, so that I can then maneuver and manipulate the garlands when I want to form the shape of the horse. So I just end up going down a little. I went down maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 holes. And I try to keep my zip tie, the end of my zip tie on the inside. So it's not on, when I tighten it, it's not on the outside of the board. So if you can see, and then again, so there's a very definitive shape to the neck, and I make sure I probably skip a hole or two, and I make sure that I really attach the garland in the shape of that neck, and that I bend the wire. And because this garland from Walmart, the wire is very easy to bend. So you can just maneuver it and follow the curve, and I kind of bend it with the curve. So bend it with the curve of the neck. And then I skip a couple holes because you don't need to put the zip ties in every hole for the horse. Not needed. And then there is a little curve in. If you can see on this board, you can see the curve comes out and then it comes in. So I bend my garland for it to come out, and then I put a little curve in it to come back out to the bottom. Just so you guys all know what I'm doing there. Because like I said, for me, being a horse person, I'm very picky about the shape of my horses. I want them to actually look like horses. So again, I just keep moving my garland, my pine tines of the garland, excuse me, up so that they're kind of out of the way, and shaping that wire of the garland to the curves of the board. Okay, so now we're at the bottom. So I have got my first row of pine garland down the outside neck of the horse. Now from there, I'm going to come across and I'm going to zip tie into the next hole on the bottom. I'm going to come over and form my wire, and then I'm going to come, just so you guys can see what I'm going to do, is because I've done a lot of these. Now I'm going to come up, if you can see, and I'll probably go for a halfway up the board, up this row that you can see here, and attach it a couple times. And then I kind of move over, and it becomes wherever the holes are. Again, no, it's just find 2 holes that are close together that work to attach that the garland to the board that it's going to work. So again, there is no particular yes, you have to do it this way, or you have to do it this way. This is how I learned. I started playing around with different techniques and, um, different styles to kind of figure out what, um, yes, you can make the horse. I have been making quite a few. I've had quite a few requests for double doors for the horses. So I've been flipping the boards and making the same horses towards each other, facing each other for people's double doors. Um, so I have attached it to the next hole at the bottom. And now I'm going to bend that garland and come back up my board and just find a place. And again, um, I'm not, it's no rhyme or reason. I usually end up going probably 6 or 7 inches before I zip tie again um, on the board. And I make sure that that garland is in the center of my zip tie and that I keep moving my pine tines as I go up, kind of manipulating them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go one more zip tie kind of straight up before I start curving over towards the top of the head. And again, I'm just found 2 holes. And when I'm done, I will show you the back of the board so you can get an idea of where the zip ties are and how many that I used and what it looks like from the back. So now if you can see, and I know the pine garland gets in the way of the view. So I think I'm gonna try to flip it around so maybe you can see better. I got my garland everywhere. So from here, I'm gonna kind of curve up towards. There's a number 10 at the top for the rows. So I'm gonna curve up towards the number 10. Put a little bit of an angle on my garland, attach it in the middle between where I just was and then the 10th row. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do from there. And now, just so you know, too, there is, I use a lot of the wide, the holes are far enough apart, but it's okay to use those too, and that there's a little room for your garland to move, because once you start pushing it down and forming the body of the horse, it's going to stay where you want it. So then now I usually go to the top, right at that, the number 10 hole, right at the top of the horse's head. And that's where I'm going to go from the hole to the outside of the board. And usually when I do the edges of the horses, I go from the outer hole to the outside of the board. That's how I attach my garlands. So let me know if you've tried a horse or have you been successful. I'm surprised. I think, I got involved. It took me, after I started making wreaths, I was so afraid because I'm a horse person. I have a horse farm. Some of you may know that. Some of you may not. I was afraid because I had a vision in my head of, and again, I'm following the shape of the horse's top of the head, and I'm going to its top the nostril hole, and just again going from the hole to the outside of the board, attaching this. Oh, I broke that one. Sometimes the zip ties break. So, anyways, I had a vision and I was afraid to even attempt a horse wreath because, oh, my dogs came running in because I didn't know if I could actually uh, make the horse the way that I wanted. And after experimenting and playing around, and I have gotten where I'm pretty happy with a lot of the designs. So now I'm gonna kind of just give you this is where we're at with the horse. Um, so if you can see, I've done the neck, I've come up back along the neck, and I've gone across the top of the head, around the nose. Now, so you know what I'm going to do, this is what I usually do, is I kind of angle up, back up to go along the top of the head again in the next row, and then I go back down the board, and that is usually where I'm putting my zip ties. Is if you have a horse board and you see the number 6, there's an actual row of numbers 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that usually use the holes to go back down on on the either side of those numbers. So thank you, Lynn. I appreciate all of your support always. So from here, I'm just again and bend and manipulate your garland to go where you want it to go. You be the boss of your garland. And so that I can get a solid, I'm just this next row over as I've bent my garland up. I am, before I go across, I'm just attaching it at the end here so that it's stabilized and will go where I want it to go. So, and I'm using the holes to go across probably in right below row 9. So that's where I'm at on my rows. And I know it's going to look like a big old garland blob until we start shaping. So you'll have to bear with me. Believe in the process. Trust the process. So I'm going to do one more before I make the curve back down. And a lot of the times what I'll end up doing is I'm going to show you there is holes on the angle. If you can see right here, that I actually bend the garland in between those angled holes so they're not quite straight up and down, and then attach. The zip tie. All right, so now we're going to start making, I'm going to kind of move my garland over. And again, I'm just kind of always trying to manipulate so that my garland wire, the base of the garland, is on the board. So I just went in 3 places. Like I said, about every 6 or 7 inches, and that's where I'm just attaching zip ties, and always at the bottom of the frame. Before then, I start to come back up, and I'm going to move my garland away from my work area. And okay, so I'll show you where I'm at with this. So there's not a whole lot of of room here. So I'm going to just continue up and try to fill in around the head. And then I'm going to go cut my other garland. And then I'm going to start working on the rest of this. Okay. So now we've used one 9-foot pine garland. And this is how far we have got on our horse. And again, I know it looks like a garland blob, but that's okay right now. Trust the process. So now I'm gonna open up another garland and we're gonna start up on the horse's head and go down the neck and then fill in. Because I like to make sure that I have enough to define the edges of my horse. Oh, here's my other garland. So, and I don't, and I can't always say that I use exactly 1.5. Sometimes it's probably more. Sometimes it might be a little less. I think a lot of the thing just depends on where I end up zip tying everything. So, and again, so we've got the end of our garland, and I always make sure these particular garlands, if you use them from Walmart, the wires at the end are kind of pointy. So I always just bend, they're soft, so you can just bend them inward towards the board. So there's no poking anybody. Now I'm going to start kind of right at the bottom 2 holes. Now I don't like to attach, that's the one thing, I don't really attach the garland to the bottom of the horse's head from the hole to the outside because I feel like it makes the head too bulky. I'm going to go in the 2 holes, not going to the outside. Get that. That's my beginning of the garland attached. And I'm just going to go, I think that there's definitely enough up here that I'm going to go along the bottom, not the bottom hole to the outside, but the bottom row to the next row up. Oh, my dogs are playing and fighting. I don't know if you guys can hear them. They are roughhousing right outside my door. Now, again, one tip that I'm going to tell you is I always attach. There is a hole right at the crook of the horse's neck where it comes from the head to the neck. There is a hole there. I always attach the garland in that hole so that I can always keep the shape of the neck there. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to kind of throw this down that way. And so I know you probably can't see what I'm doing, but that's what I'm doing is I'm zip tying in from that hole to the outside of the board, so that I make sure I have that bend and that curve around the horses. You can see them coming out. I know. They're crazy. Can't control Frenchies. They just do what they want to do. They do what they want to do, those French bulldogs. So again, now, like I said, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just attach my garland to the outside of the horse's neck down to the base, and then I'm going to fill in the rest of the little triangle here. So this garland curve here at the base, there's a little bit of a curve there. So I was just kind of manipulating it to get ready to bend to come around. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of, again, keep my garland blob here. I know I'm very technical when I teach this. Very technical. Hi, Carrie Marie. Good to see you. And again, I'm using, it's placement wherever you feel like the garland needs to go and attaching it so it's secure, making sure that you're kind of staying even with your placement of the garland so that you get the coverage that you want. And again, if you need to curve, bend your wire of these garlands and go up and down instead of across with your zip ties to attach. And again, I'm just attaching it because I'm to the bottom and I'm coming back up to kind of fill in the last space I have. I still want to put one more down at the bottom because I see it popping up. Okay. And now let's see where. So I'm just going to kind of show you what's going on. So I have that gap, if you can see. So that's what I'm going up. I'm just bringing my garland up to fill in that that space there. I know it's hard to see with the garland blob on the form. So I'm just going to call it from now on the garland blob before I get it shaped. Ask the kids, knows more about. I know my kids, they're probably more computer savvy than I am. But that is okay. Now I'm going to cut this. I know I have about maybe like 3 or 4 inches to finish. So before I finish, I'm going to just find a spot, cut the garland. So this is I have a little over, I have 36 and I have 46 inches of garland left over from 2 9-foot rolls of Walmart garland. Now I do horses too with garlands from Michaels, and they're a much thicker garland and a different pine. I don't think I have any right here. Oh, I do have. I can show you. Now I do. This is the Michaels garland. And if you can, I don't know if you can see very well on the, but I do a bunch of horses with this garland too. I don't know if the lighting is letting you see, but it's a denser, darker green. This is a little bit lighter green and a little bit lighter, needle on it. And I'm doing my last. A lot of the times, again, once you cut it, make sure you bend that cut wire so nobody's getting poked. And I'm finding my last hole to put my zip tie in and make sure I can attach this. Okay, my garland is in. So I'm going to show you the back right now. If you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see the zip tie placements a little bit. Again, no rhyme, no reason, a little bit random. Some are on the angle, some are straight across, some are on the outside, the end hole to the outside. Which is your strategy? No, my strategy does not change, except I might leave a little bit more room because it's a bit thicker in between my rows. It seems to cover because it's a denser garland, so it seems to cover. But I still end up using probably at least 1.25 to still 1.5. It just seems to be my average. Okay, so I have now cut with my zip tie cutter, handy dandy thing. So there we are. There is our horse garland blob. So let's start. This is the point. Oh, before I do that, I am going to put my hanger in. And this is I'm gonna put dots. I'm gonna see if I have a Sharpie. So you can see. I thought I had a Sharpie here. There's one. Okay. It might be a little easier to see. So it is, we're going to just if you're counting from the ear, 1, 2, on the outside holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you went to the 6th hole down, and then the next row over, there's 2 holes on either side that I've starred. If I don't know, can you see that? They are there and there. That is where I put my hanger in hopes that when the customer gets the horse, it hangs the way that I want to. A lot of people have it straight up and down, and I like it to hang like an actual horse, like, you know, with how a horse's head and neck would really be sitting on their body. So that's, again, I think the horse person in me. And I use a zip tie for the hanger that I can put the head of I can just run it through the back here and then come around front and then attach it. And I attach it just a couple notches so that there's some room on the back side with this, and it can be tightened once I hang it, if I feel like it's too loose. I think everybody should try the horses. They're fun, and there's so many different ideas to with them. And I have had horses since I was 8 years old, Robin. And I've never been without. Okay, so what we do with the garland blob, again, very technical, is I'll start at the bottom, and I'm going to just use my fingers to shape and pull all of the garland pine tines down the horse's neck. So I kind of just want everything going in the same direction right now. And I just kind of keep doing that and maybe sometimes a little bend, because I want the shape of the horse to start forming. Okay, so this part from about here, the horse's head down, I manipulate the pine garland to go down, and then I kind of start bending. Anything that's poking up, I kind of just bend and shape. So then what I do to keep the curve of the neck is I take the outside pine garland and I put a little bend and I go towards the inside of the horse so that I really keep the shape. And I just follow the shape, bending those pine tines so that they keep. And then so you can see how clean that line is of that horse when you bend those pine tines in and keep the shape of the horse's neck. So then I turn my horse towards me with the nose towards me. And I do the same thing. So the horse's head, the pine garland for their head, is coming towards me away from the horse's ear, because of that's I feel like I can get the shape of the horse's head the way that I want by doing it this way. So I just keep working the garland, and you're going to see some spots, which I should soon plug my glue gun in. You're going to see some bare spots, and I'm going to give you my tips and tricks for that too, because I got some tips and tricks for that. So, and I don't usually do, like, I get the basic shape of the horse that I want and the form. And then once I get everything on, I kind of will go back through and I will manipulate the shape of the pine some more so that it forms how I want it to form, and the curves of the horse's neck and the head and the jawline and the nose, because I don't like a big square nose on the horse, because that's not how a horse's nose is. It's kind of round, but there's, anyways, again, that's for me being a horse person. So now I'll show you. So what I do, I'm going to show you the back side too. See how much this this garland extends away from the horse's nose. I won't, and I'm going to show you the front, which I think it ends up being too long. It makes the horse's head too long. So what I do with that is that I use the extra length and I bend it under, and I start to get the shape of the horse's nose that I want. So I bend however long I want it. I kind of bend it under towards the board. And that helps me get the horse's shape of the nose and jawline a little bit more with having that extra length going out the nose, or away from the nose, I should say. And again, usually at the end is when I will go, and any gaps and holes that I see, that's a lot of the times. So any of this little extra, these extra pieces that could pop off or come, is I will put a little bit of glue on the tip of it, the bent tip, and then I will lift up my garland and add it with my glue to fill in any holes if need be. Okay, I'm going to show you this right now, which again, I'm still not happy with the horse's nose, but this is, we're going to show you right now. So, and I know the ear is floppy, but that is going to change. We have to fill in up here, but I'm not going to worry about that right now, because that's where the forelock is going to go and the mane's going to start, and then we will work from there. So, all right, that's the base of our pine garland horse. So for the mane, I'm using 60919. I don't know if you all know what that is, but That's what I'm using. And I end up using, I'll show you, I think each 609, you can use any floral, you know, like that you want. You can deck these out with like you just saw with the unicorn. I mean, draping florals, all kinds of florals. You can do you could do so many things. So many things for the main. So I split these apart into three. They come in, there's like three stems, and then I cut um the excess off from each one so that there's just a little um tip left on there to use to zip tie. So I end up using, there's 6 total, and I use 5. And I usually end up having 1 left over. So again, I've just snipped off the excess of these 60919. And if you use 60919, I kind of, there is 1 stem on each of the bushes that has a twig, like a curly twig on it. And I don't know if you can see that in there. So I use both of those, and I'll show you when I put it in. When the twig I use for the second part of the mane and the bottom part of the mane, and then I use 2 other pieces, and then I use 1 piece for the forelock, and then I have 1 spare. So here's my twigs. So I'm not going to use those, but I'm going to, now I'm going to take, and so I usually leave with these stems, there's a fern, kind of a flat fern. That's usually the side with the flowers up that I put so that I can maneuver everything. And I will fluff up and move the flowers and give them some life once I get them in. But what I do is I put a zip tie in between the branches, or you know, all the little stems. So I put a zip tie in right through there to secure it, and I will go, there is a set of 3 holes, 1, 2, 3 up here, like in a little triangle. The one closest to the neck, so it's going to be the second hole down from the ear, is where I put my first flower stem. And I go from that hole to the outside of the board, and then zip tie in. Now I'm using, this is my twig, and I like the twig on the inside of the horse, so it's over top of the horse's neck. So this is my second bunch stem of flowers, and I do the same thing. I just go right through the middle with the pipe cleaner, and I overlap. Sometimes you have to put a little bit of a bend. I try to hide the stem. I lift up a couple of pine tines, and so then I hide the stem underneath the pine tines around the neck. So there's a layer of pine tines on the outside of the horse's neck. I will run this stem up under, and then I have these pine tines here to kind of cover the zip tie and the stem. So again, you can use, if you're doing a mane, you can use as many florals, or as little florals, or you could use so many different things. You can use, you know, big daisies, you know, for a spring horse. There's just endless possibilities. So right now I'm just kind of manipulating that pine tines again over the stem of that the flowers. And then I will bend, I will go, and I kind of lift and I push and use the bend, the wired stems, you know, to have the mane go in like a real mane did, not like sticking out. So I just kind of shape it to go to the inside of the horse. So now I'm going to use my third. Usually I put a little bend in the stem if I'm using a bunch like this, a little floral bunch. All right, so now I'm using my other floral 6091 bunch with the wood twig curly stem for the bottom. So I used it the second one down, and I'm using it as the fourth one down too, coming in. All right, moving. And I usually don't, I mean, I zip tie them tight, but I usually don't use the zip tie cutter on them, because then they they get a little bit too bunched up, and I don't have the room to kind of manipulate the florals. So, and again, I'm not gonna totally, but again, with the wire, all the wired stuff, you move it so that you just make it kind of beautiful and flowing. And um, all right, now we've got I'm going to show you again, and this isn't done, so this is the beginning stage of the mane. What we're doing, because we're going to have ribbon tails that are going down through here when we're done with the bow, but we're going to put the now again, I bend. Usually on the forelock, I kind of bend the stem and kind of make it so it drapes down the horse's face. And I'm going to move. So I usually attach the forelock to not the ear. So if you went away from the ear and started right at the top of the head, it would be the first hole from on the top of the board to the outside. So the first hole away from the ear is where I usually attach my forelock. That's the way it's close up to the horse's forehead and the ear. I'm adding a bow. This one requires a bow, so I will do that. That's my last thing is the bow. And then I like my horse's forelocks to just kind of drape and be a little crazy down their face. And then again, I'm just using some of these pine tines to, again, cover my zip ties and my mechanics. So there we have the forelock. Now my next step is I will put the halter on. And that's where this 5/8 ribbon come in. It's not wired. So for me to do this, I will turn the board around and show you how I do it on the back side, but I have to have the horse facing me, because what I do is I staple the ribbon to the back of the board. So where I'm going to show you right now is that normally when I put the noseband on, if I go from the nose hole, the top nose hole, I go over to the third hole, and that's where the top, no, I'm sorry, I go to the second hole on the top. I'm looking at it upside down, that's why. Second hole over, so the one right here, and then I kind of angle a slight angle to the third hole on the bottom of the horse's neck. So it's not usually straight up and down. There's a slight bit of an angle on the noseband of the horse. Sort of have a long foreleg, some are short. So horses and their forelocks, a lot is just them. Um, and do they have a lot of hair? Like some of us have thin hairs, some of us have thick hair. It's kind of the same thing. So right now, I'm sorry, but I have this is where I have to have the board facing me so that I can uh, use my staple gun. Where is it? And then I just secure it and I hold it, making sure not to staple my fingers in there. And then again, I'm putting a little bit of an angle on it, going just by the second hole. And then I cut it off. So there is the nose band of the horse. And what I do from there is I'll lift up the forelock and I bring the end over. I leave an inch or a little bit more than an inch because I end up folding this over. And I'm gonna do it right now. I have found I like this better than hot glue because hot glue kind of leaves a little bit of a residue. This 3-in-1 advanced craft glue. And I just take it on the back side and I squeeze a little bit on the underside of the ribbon because this is not thick ribbon for this. So, and then I put a little bit on the back and it gives me a hair more time to work with it. And then I just kind of hold it for a minute and pat it down. And it dries clear where I like that a little bit better than the hot glue. Oh, well, thanks, Peggy. I'm glad you're enjoying. I'm glad. So now I go from the middle of the nose band of the horse to right behind the ear. And again, I'll show you. Usually I run it where I've zip tied that first piece of the mane. I will cover up that zip tie and then put the staple in. So again, a lot of my stuff has been thinking about how to hide mechanics and whatnot. No burning fingers. No burning fingers with the craft glue. All right, so now I'm going to do the throat. Well, I call it's the throat latch. It goes from, it's a brow band and a throat latch. So we're going to go into the horses, the crook, that very curve that I showed you guys earlier. And again, I'm going to turn this around and show you exactly where things are stapled. And then I staple up right in front of the ear for this part of the brow band. And then cut. All right, so now we have the horse's bridle on, coordinating bridle. And I'm going to show you. So this is where I pretty much always staple. So again, at the bottom of the horse's neck, it's around just behind the third hole. The top is just behind the second hole. The throat latch goes right in the curve of the neck up to the front of the ear. And then the side piece or the cheek piece goes behind the ear and then gets glued to the nose band. I am not putting, Lynn, I'm putting it on snug, but I'm not putting it on tight enough where it's pushing down the garland, if that makes sense. Just enough where it keeps its form and is not going to get bunchy, but it's not pushed into the garland. So, and yes, say okay. So then this is my, cause I don't want ever to scratch my customer's door with the staples. So I take little pieces of the same ribbon. I put a little dab of hot glue on the back of that staple, and then I just pat a little extra piece of ribbon over each one of those staples so that they are protected. I don't. So now I'm going to do the bow, and that is, I use the 1.5 inch Scarlet Dupioni ribbon. And of course, as you all know, I use my Easy Bow Maker Deluxe. Love it. I don't have time to dink around with practicing my hand bows. Sorry, but okay, so this particular horse has ribbon tails, a waterfall attached, and then it drapes down. So what I end up doing is I have to measure. I give myself a little extra room, and I know where I'm going to attach it because I've done this so many times before. And then up to where I'm going to attach it there, and then add a little extra room. So this particular horse, I probably use a 31 inches on the tail to drape down. And then I pinch, I twist. Now, for my bows, usually I keep them, if I'm gonna do them at the top of these horses, I found I like I like 4.5 inches. That seems to keep it not overwhelming for the size of the horse. It helps cover up some of the mechanics. It just seems to work. And again, I put it in between the two dowels. I press down, pinching, and then a good twist on that. So on this particular design, I do 5 loops and a button loop, a finish loop. All the loops are done at 4.5, and I push down in between the two dowels, and I give it a good twist. And then I measure with my 2 fingers so that I know that they're pretty exact, and push down, and then I twist. This is my last one before I do my button loop. So I've got 5 4.5 inch. Well, they might be a little bit bigger than 4.5 inches. Just they're not quite 5 inches. How's that? And then my little button loop is about it's about 2 inches. And then I press down, and then I take my tail and I do another. I just measure down to where my other tail is, and that's where I cut. So then I get my pipe cleaner, and again, I just gently slide off from my bow maker, and I have my pipe cleaner, and kind of manipulate my bow or my tails to be where I want them before I get this tight. And then I just start twisting my pipe cleaner. So, and again, I'm not fluffing my bow until I get it in. And then, So for my bow, I'm going to kind of move things so you can see. So remember at the very beginning, there was a bit of an open space here up here, and I left it that way so that I could get my pipe cleaner through these two holes and then maneuver the rest of the greenery to cover up the base. So that is my little trick there. So that's I just put my bow through those two open holes, twist it, and then I cut it, leave almost an inch, and then I stick my I leave enough to stick my pipe cleaner back up into a hole so that it's not poking out. So now from there, so I have my bow. My ear is not done yet. I'm going to take my bow and fluff it out. Poof up my loops. Okay. Now I take my tails on this and I can measure. I know where I'm going to put it, but I've never really measured it. It's probably 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Probably take about 14 inches. And I keep my tails together. I just give them a little bit of a pinch. And then I put a little bit of a waterfall. I give them, what is that called when you do? I mean, what y'all gotta know. I can't. My words are hard right now. Oh, this my words are hard. I know. I'm tired. It's been a long day of making horses. So, and then right where I want, usually there's a hole, one of the outside holes is then where I end up putting this zip tie to attach. Hold on, Lynn, I'll tell you in a bridging. Okay, we can go with any of that. And I think it's a little poofy. So again, I always I don't tighten until I have my waterfall loops, ribbon tails, kind of how I want them. And that's kind of how I want them. So I believe these are sold for this particular one. I think it's priced at $120 plus shipping. And I charge a flat $20 shipping for these. Sometimes I lose money, sometimes I don't. Okay, so then I have this, and then I drape these so that and I work them so that they're flowing into the horse. And then I give them a little bit of a dovetail at the end. So now, one of the things I do is there's, on this particular design, there's like a little hidden berry that I usually cut off from right underneath the bow. And I glue that to the zip tie where I have attached the ribbon tails to the board, just to hide the top of that zip tie. And then from there, I will take and I kind of move and start spreading out my different greenery and florals on the main and bending them and moving them so that they can get seen and not be totally hidden. I spread these out and I bring a couple of the florals through there, maybe a little greenery. I use that twig and I give it a little twirl. So I want it to be out there. And I spread out my flowers. Put a little bend. You know, you just got to manipulate and play with. That's why the wires are in there. So you can maneuver them where you want them to be. And then my other twig. Okay. And then I like to move these around. Then this inside tail, I usually kind of play with and make it go a little bit underneath the florals. And this one I let drape outwards. And then what I'll do is I'll go back and then I start, so because I've moved some of the main, the outside pine to put these in. So I go back and I lift and I move and I bend those pine tines back under to hide mechanics and work. And I'm going to show you. So there is, if you can see, there's that zip tie where I attached the ribbon tails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out one of the pine tines from the garland and then put it right underneath, you know, underneath that, by that zip tie. So it ends up covering, and I'm just securing, getting it secured in there. So it covers, so my berry is covered the top and I use the pine to cover the rest of it. Now let's move on to the ear because we have a flopsy mopsy ear right now. So I like the horse's ear to be kind of shaped and bent. So like looking the direction that the horse is going. And if it's, I find it's a little, I put a little flopsy, I put a little bit of a bend in some of them. I like just the tips. I curve one way or the other, so in or out or under, so that they get a little bit more stable, and they're not so, they don't move around so much. But what I also might do is if I've got some are a little bit more secure than the others, what I'll do is I'll put some glue on the board underneath that ear, and then I will hold that down for a minute just so that it gives it a little bit more stability. There on that. Okay, and now I'm going to work on, I know, stay with me. We're almost done, everyone. Stay with me. I'm just kind of getting a little bit better shape to the horse's nose right now. I like, there's, they have a little bit of a curve under, you know, like a chin. They have a chin. And I see I have a gap. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the screen or not, but there is a little bit of a gap here where I don't have enough pine garland. So for me to cover that up, I'm going to take some of my extra, put a little bit of glue on it, and then I'm just going to lift up and go under and then push some top garland down on it. And I see there's another spot over by the main. And that's, a lot of the times what I do is, if I've got extra from a project, if I use this garland, I usually keep it because this is what I end up doing with it, is just putting a little bit in where there might be some extra. Need some extra. Sometimes you need extra. Thanks, Robin. I appreciate that. So, and then again, I'm just kind of going and doing a final tuck under with, I don't like them to be pokey. So I'm just kind of manipulating any of the ends and pushing them a little bit into the wreath, the base, the garland, so that they kind of stay put. And I think I have done it. I think I am happy. All right, so this is the final Christmas horse on the Unique in the Creek horse board, which is my favorite, you all know. And we used Walmart garland, a 9 foot and a half of a 9 foot. We used 1.5 inch scarlet Dupioni ribbon for the bow and the ribbon tails. We used 60919, and I used almost two stems total for that to go down the mane. We used the 5-inch red ribbon, non-wired, for the halter. Yes, I did. Jingle bells would look cool on this one too, but this is the one that I've had listed. I have sold this so many times. I am not changing it, but yes, jingle bells would be awesome to add all along the mane, or there, like I said, there are so many options of accenting these horses and using these boards. And I love the garland, and garlands come in white, and I have blue garland, I have pink garland, I have the green garland, I have all kinds of different colors. So again, there are so many options. I don't think you can ever run out of ideas with these horses, and really super fun manes. And you could put small bows all the way down its neck. And so this is one with the Walmart pine garland, and you can see it's darker. This design, I did a bow right at the base of the neck. And then I used this kind of a rustic foam and berry garland. And I just kept it all together, and I just zip tie the whole garland to it. And then I use a canvas ribbon that matches this ribbon for the bow. And then I added, I don't know if you can see it, but I did add, there's 3 pine cones up by the ear. So this is another one that I think I sell. This is probably the second top seller of mine. So that's the other one. Thanks for hanging out.